Chapter 121. Life and Death Marathon, 12. Doomsday Spiritual Artifact Master. Quick, quick, catch her! Xu Xing hid inside an empty garbage bin, peeking out with half his head, observing discreetly. Across the street, 7 or 8 brazen refugees were looting a large supermarket without any restraint. Shopping carts and shelves were violently knocked down. After ransacking, they poured a large barrel of cooking oil onto the ground, lit it with a lighter, and instantly, flames shot up into the sky. Shortly after they left with their loot, a holographic projection appeared above the supermarket. Check-in point. Xu Xing's eyes lit up. His inner self danced a disco. He actually ran into it. What luck, Xu Xiaoxing. He released Frost, wrapping himself from head to toe, and dashed into the supermarket. This time the check-in point was near the ceiling. Xu Xing found the nearest warehouse-style shelf and struggled to climb up. The temperature inside was too high. The ice melted quickly. Xu Xing's little face turned red from the heat, his curly hair drooping down as sweat streamed down his face. He reached out, wiped his face, and tremblingly climbed to the top of the shelf, trying to reach the terminal. Unfortunately, he was just a little short. He tiptoed and pushed desperately with his fingertips, finally getting a bit closer. Xu Xing stomped his foot in frustration. He had never felt so short with his 130 centimeters height, growing 3 centimeters taller this new year. If it were Su Cha. No, not even Su Cha. If it were Lu Xiaoyu, Fang Jishu, Lin Yuyu, or his sister, any of them could easily reach it. HMPH, only that person in the wheelchair couldn't reach it. Xu Xing pouted and sent a message in the group chat. Check-in point, hurry up. At that moment, V587 members were busy defending for Song K, and no one paid attention to the slight reminder in the group chat. Xu Xing pressed the receiver he had just hidden to mute and raised his voice, "Hey? Hello, Moshi Moshi?" As soon as the earpiece opened, Lin Yuyu's vigorous and fierce scolding immediately came through, calling him old scoundrel, shameless, demanding him to kneel and slap his face. It left Xu Xing stunned. After a while, only Su Cha quietly replied, "Share your location." Only the two of them were still working at the moment. Xu Xing sat cross-legged on the shelf, nodding vigorously while listening to the scolding battle. His movements were too exaggerated, and he accidentally burned half of his buttocks. With a sizzle, he jumped up and shifted his position. Shortly after, Su Cha arrived at the supermarket, pouring a basin of cold water over Xu Xing's head. His agile figure rushed in like a gust of wind. "Where's the check-in point?" Su Cha asked. Xu Xing pointed casually, still muttering, "Bad guy, stinky old man," continuously. "It's there." Su Cha asked again, "Where?" Xu Xing replied, "Right there." But the fire seal had long disappeared. Xu Xing was dumbfounded. Oh no, he was too absorbed in Lin Yuyu's scolding that he didn't notice the check-in point had moved. Su Cha looked at him silently. Xu Xing blinked innocently back at him. The surroundings crackled and burst with fire, leaving the supermarket completely charred. "Let's go." Su Cha lifted the short Xu Xing off the shelf, casually holding him with his arm. "Need some ice." The cold water splashed earlier had evaporated completely, and the scorching flames were licking Su Cha's skin. Forced into an ice-making machine, Xu Xing lifted his buttocks and swung his 2 little legs, knowing he was in the wrong. He obediently released his ability. Both of them were enveloped in a tight layer of frost and hurriedly dashed out of the supermarket. As they ran onto the street, the 5 members of V587 arrived following the location. "Xiao Xing, where's the check-in point?" Song K asked enthusiastically. "It's gone." Xu Xing flapped his hands in a dejected manner. "It was just right in front of me." "It was right in front of you. Why didn't you use the terminal then?" Zhuang Qingyan asked calmly. Xu Xing's confidence deflated instantly. He grumbled, feeling sorry for himself. I couldn't reach it." His male pride emerged silently. He extended his pinky finger, indicating, Just missed it by this much. Su Cha glanced at him, seeing through but not exposing it, preserving Xu Xing's pride. Hurry up, the zombie tide is coming, Lu Xiaoyu reminded. The densely packed zombies swept through like locusts, swiftly flooding the streets and alleys. They stormed into buildings, jumped onto car roofs, knocking down fleeing humans, cruelly biting and feeding on them. The splattering blood seemed to weave a crimson velvet carpet over Greenwater City. The refugees who had recently sought shelter, witnessing this horror, scrambled even more desperately to flee. Where's the zombie king? Song Kei's cold jagged blade sawed through a zombie's head that rushed towards her. Not here. Lu Xiaoyu's mechanical arms moved in unison, replying loudly. Lin Yuyu's singing didn't cease, and she shouted in passing, not even level 3 zombies. The zombies in this zombie tide were mainly levels 1 and 2, occasionally mixed with a few mutant zombies. Although their numbers were high, their strengths varied. Ordinary people could resist them, and once the awakeners inside Greenwater City and the official forces reacted, they would eventually be wiped out. A zombie tide without a zombie king commanding, it was nothing but a scattered group of cannon fodders. Zhuang Qingyan's eyes dimmed as he instantly recalled an ancient military strategy from the old civilization, diverting attention from the true objective. Attacking Greenwater City was highly likely a diversion set up by that cunning zombie king. It deliberately released some low-level zombies to feign an attack on the city while sending the true elite forces elsewhere. Zhuang Qingyan activated his screen and entered the live broadcast channel of the throne race competition. Some teams, like Shengxing Tea House, were ahead and had already reached Rishufu. However, this city, most likely to be attacked, remained peaceful at the moment. He quickly scanned through the personal live streams of other competitors. Each team had different progress. Some were fighting zombies in already fallen cities, some relentlessly pushed forward, and a few relaxed, comfortably sitting in restaurants. But regardless of the location, there was no sign of another zombie tide. Zhuang Qingyan paused his finger on the screen, switching to the marathon map and calculating swiftly in his mind. Theoretically, guessing the psychological activities of zombies was an absurd idea, but Zhuang Qingyan had no hesitation. His gaze focused directly on the second-to-last checkpoint, Hyman. Check-in point. Suddenly, Song Kei pointed upward. In a skyscraper ahead, about 30 floors high, the glass suddenly shattered, and several figures struggled before falling and crashing onto the ground. V-587 rapidly closed in on the target, but to their surprise, they collided with the Annanites. This group of robots was a step ahead. Their steamship landed on the rooftop of the building. 5 awakeners from their team threw down ropes, sliding down to their respective floors, swiftly activating terminals. A holographic projection appeared with a message, "Congratulations, Annanites, for successfully checking in." Song Kei furrowed her brow, observing them closely. The Annanites had changed. They seemed to have plundered the military arsenal in Greenwater City, armed to the teeth. Shotguns replaced by cannons, assault rifles, shoulder-mounted mortars, and rough mechanical parts integrated into their bodies, creating a crude yet menacing appearance. 5 mechanical beings swiftly turned their weapons and opened fire at Song Kei and the others charging towards them without a word. They were trapped at the city gate. At that time, they were unable to do anything about the culprit. Now that they were free to act and had the upper hand in firepower, they were determined to reclaim their ground. "Wanna check in? I'll turn you into Swiss cheese," the leader-like figure among the mechanical beings arrogantly shouted. Gunshots erupted, casings scattered, forcing Song Kei's group to retreat repeatedly. The front line was too intense, impossible to break through. Target their healers and support. In team battles, targeting the healers first was ingrained in their combat DNA. Torrents of bullets surged towards Fang Jishu and Lin Yuyu. Lin Yuyu's lips moved rapidly as she rapped for self-preservation, conjuring up a thick fog. Within the Annanites' team's vision, 2 figures vanished. Yet, Fang Jishu's presence was too conspicuous. The mechanical beings, still holding the aerial advantage, had already locked onto his position. A long, thick chain whistled through the air, piercing through the mist. With a click, it clamped onto Fang Jishu's ankle, dragging him out. The malicious smile of the awakener who acted was evident as he hoisted Fang Jishu, twirling him in the air before hurling him towards the densely packed area of zombies. With muscles surging, Su Cha leapt like a cheetah over the rooftop, racing towards Fang Jishu's landing spot. Unfortunately, they were a step too late. Bang! Fang Jishu crashed down on dozens of zombies. Old Fang, Song Kei's eyes twitched with excessive tension. Fang Jishu, sprawled on the ground, awkwardly got up, looking around in panic. The zombies around him were hit directly by this extraterrestrial object. Some had necks snapped, while others had holes, oozing foul, black liquid. Ow! Their feasting was abruptly interrupted. They roared angrily, roaring at Fang Jishu, spraying his face with their putrid saliva, their teeth, covered in bits of flesh, almost touching his eyeballs. Then, the movements of the zombies halted. They seemed to have lost their target, confusedly sniffing around Fang Jishu. After a few seconds, they resumed, lowering their heads to feast on the corpses. Fang Jishu attempted to move his legs, trying to stand but accidentally tripped again. With a slap from his left hand, he struck a zombie's head, causing it to twist and turn, emitting ho-ho sounds from its throat, seemingly oblivious to Fang Jishu who was so close. Song Kei breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that Fang Jishu had an odd constitution. Zombies didn't bite him. Su Cha arrived at the scene and took the opportunity to retrieve Fang Jishu. Song Kei glared coldly at the Knights. At the moment when V-587 was distracted, the check-in point vanished again. This time, after disappearing, it didn't reappear from elsewhere as it usually did. Song Kei realized something. The refugees were exhausted from fleeing and no longer focused on causing trouble. Consequently, the appearance frequency of the checkpoint became slower and slower. The mechanical beings from above smugly pulled their lips as they stopped V-587. Afterward, they turned back, climbing towards the top of the building, preparing to retreat. Nearly killed Fang Jishu and still thinking about running? Song Kei grabbed an electrical pole from the ground, transforming it into a 9-section whip. Clinging to the exterior wall of the building, her speed was astonishingly fast, relentlessly pursuing. Gradually closing the gap with the Knights, she unexpectedly swung the whip. Take that. Shu Xing intuitively froze the foot of one of them with ice. The ethereal blue whip instantly coiled around his neck. As Song Kei pulled down, the mechanical being plummeted straight down from 100 meters high, littering the ground with scattered parts. Damn it, run! Just after this shout, another member, cursed by Lin Yu, suddenly stepped into nothingness. Song Kei grabbed his waist, peeling him off the surface of the building. Ah, you bunch of little FCKERS, die! As Song Kei ascended through the floors, her attacks became faster. The Knights were pushed to the edge. With relentless mortar bombardments, the building's support beams ruptured, causing it to gradually tilt. Song Kei glanced towards the last one, mechanical leg. Panic was evident on his face. He was just a step away from the steamship. Clenching his teeth, he shed all excess weight and sprouted suction cups on his legs, quickly maneuvering along the glass surface, creating distance from Song Kei for a moment. Mechanical Leg's left hand grasped the hatch of the steamship, displaying an ecstatic expression, believing he had escaped. At that moment, a powerful mental force invaded his mind. His body hairs stood on end, his eyes suddenly flickered and became empty. The serpentine 9-section whip wrapped around his thigh. Song Kei tightened her forearm, leveraging her entire body weight backward. With a pop, the suction cups deprived of air, detached from the glass, and Mechanical Leg's 2 limbs were forcibly torn apart. Before he could recover his senses, he plummeted heavily. The Knights were completely wiped out. The dazzling holographic projection descended, and the fiery seal slowly emerged, signifying the rekindled battle among the Awakeners. The opportunity was fleeting. Suddenly, Song K performed a swift pull-up, utilizing the inertia to leap upwards. Then, she released her grip, twisted her body midair, and with her slender waist drew a sharp arc, leveraging her remarkable flexibility to tap the terminal. Congratulations, V587, for successfully checking in. Success! As Song K landed and rolled, unexpectedly, she slid off the rooftop without warning. Lightning fast, she grasped the railing, her body swaying. Regardless of whether Zhuang Qingyan and the others could see her, she flashed a V sign downward. The next moment, the overstressed building split in half from the middle, quickly crumbling into pieces. As the railing lost its stability and tilted, Song K's foothold vanished, akin to a kite with a snapped string, plummeting from a considerable height, falling down. Quick, quick, catch her! Lin Yuyu's complexion paled as she rushed forward with her arms outstretched. Even if Song K possessed incredible abilities, she was still hundreds of meters above the ground now. No matter how powerful her ability was, her body couldn't endure such a fall. Bang! Song K attempted to grab a steel beam, but it broke, her head smashing through the glass. She tumbled into the building and rolled out again. Falling too fast, she couldn't find a solid anchor point. She had to use her whip to catch onto whatever she could to slow her descent. Veins surfaced on Zhuang Qingyan's hand as he trembled, abruptly leaving his wheelchair. Lu Xiaoyu shattered the shop window, pulling out a bedsheet from inside. 6 mechanical arms extended and stretched out to serve as a makeshift cushion. The collapsing building erupted in a violent explosion, billowing smoke rising from the ruins. Thud, thud, Song K bounced down like a ball, landing perfectly into Lu Xiaoyu's makeshift cushion, significantly reducing the impact, and safely caught. Lu Xiaoyu sighed in relief, retracting the mechanical arms, ready to lift her up. However, like an eel, Song K unexpectedly slipped out from the edge, bouncing twice and smacked onto the roof of a nearby armored truck, landing face down. Lu Xiaoyu, oh, Xu Xing covered his face, grimacing in pain. Song K, supporting her head, stood up groggily, spinning around aimlessly. Finally, she turned her back to everyone and addressed the air, hee hee, check-in, success. Zhuang Qingyan snapped his fingers, Song Kiki, turn around. Confused, Song K turned but still couldn't find anyone. Then, tears welled up in her eyes, and 2 lines of red fell from her nose. Chapter 122. Life and Death Marathon, 13, Doomsday Spiritual Artifact Master. 1000 Deaths Blue Enchantress of Cataclysmic Annihilation. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Song K had changed into a coat that could cover her entire body, sitting cross-legged in the back seat of the car, trying hard to diminish her own presence. The loose hood covered her blushing face. She had stuffed 2 pieces of tissue in her nose. Echoes of teammates' unrestrained laughter reverberated in her ears, especially the boisterous ones from Lin Yuyu, Lu Xiaoyu, and the muffled chuckles from Xu Xing. Song K, are you made of jelly? How can you be so elastic ha 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 and bounce like that ha ha ha? Sister, does your face hurt? I felt so much pain on my face just now. The part where you bumped into the cash transport vehicle was already edited into a viral clip. It got a lot of views. I saved it, want to see? I'll send it to you. I shouldn't have made a V sign to them, Song K thought expressionlessly. If only I hadn't wasted that time, I could have flipped up. With a last glimmer of hope, she looked at Su Cha and Fang Jishu. They wouldn't mock her, right? Fang Jishu struggled to hold back his laughter, his trembling left hand offering a row of band-aids, while Su Cha avoided eye contact, dodging her gaze, coughed a couple of times to disguise it, then turned away silently. Song K, don't think I didn't notice, you're clearly laughing. Zhuang Qingyan extended his arm from the front row, rubbing Song K's head through the hood. He shifted slightly downward, his slender fingers weaving through her hair, lightly touching the minor scratch on her cheek. Song K tilted her head to avoid it, but it inadvertently brushed against her ear, turning as red as fire in an instant. Next time you jump, aim a bit better, at least, don't let your face hit first. Zhuang Qingyan's eyes twinkled with a smile, his voice husky, carrying a hint of teasing. Song K froze, then suddenly bit his wrist. After a while, she spat it out with a stiff, uncomfortable expression. The competition, you guys, focus. Talk about serious matters, Song K shouted in frustration and embarrassment. The teasing had gone too far, the captain was losing her temper, and the team members, sensing the shift, immediately fell silent, pretending to be busy. She's talking to you guys, be serious. Xu Xing acted all authoritative, pointing and lecturing like a little adult. Song K coldly snorted and leaned against the window, looking outside. The road out of the city was strewn with corpses, devastation everywhere. Hearing the sound of the engine, the zombies grotesquely lunged toward them but were sent flying by Lu Xiaoyu's wild driving skills. The newly acquired SUV lacked the stability of the previous off-road pickup truck for long distances. Upon impact, the car would occasionally jolt, making everyone inside sway. Zhuang Qingyan lightly tapped his fingers, conjuring a holographic map. He marked crosses at the positions of Rainbow Cloud City and Greenwater City, then drew a darker line indicating the shortest path to Haimen. We're only heading to safe cities, completing the checkpoints along the way. Before today ends, we must reach Haimen, not following the designated route? Su Cha was somewhat surprised. According to the original plan, V-587 was supposed to pass through a fallen District C if they followed Zhuang Qingyan's route. After reaching Haimen, they'd have to circle back again to complete the check-in, which would waste more time. Our goal is the championship, killing the Zombie King is the key. Missing this opportunity to catch it, even if we complete the check-in points within the set time, it's just clearing the level, not winning. You suspect the Zombie King will attack Haimen? Why not Rishufu? Haimen is much tougher to breach. Lin Yuyu raised a question. So confident? What if it heads to Rishufu instead? Lu Xiaoyu glanced at him sideways. If Zhuang Qingyan's speculation was wrong, they would be left empty-handed, not encountering the Zombie King, wasting precious time. Zhuang Qingyan squinted with a hint of amusement in his peach blossom eyes. From the encounters at Tungwen, this Zombie King is valiant in battle, bold yet meticulous, skilled in using ancient warfare tactics, maneuvering and disrupting the enemy's rhythm. What's even more remarkable is its calmness under pressure. Even when facing a disadvantage, it can make accurate judgments instantly. It's an exceptionally outstanding battlefield commander. Rarely praising others, Zhuang Qingyan continued to shower such extensive praise on a zombie, leaving everyone's expressions somewhat hard to articulate. I've researched the information. Among the active registered commanders in the Alliance, there's no one with this style. Lu Xiaoyu multitasked, his idle mechanical arm projecting without reservation. If it's as formidable as you say, shouldn't it be someone known? Zhuang Qingyan, looking disdainful, pushed away his intrusive hand. You think sheer strength can bring success? There are plenty of talented but frustrated individuals out there. You should understand this better than me, right? Lu Xiaoyu, whose legs were broken by the Lu family and thrown into death prison because of his outstanding strength and peculiar temperament. Hey, isn't this hitting a little too close to home? If I were it, I'd now possess an unstoppable, endless army of the living dead. The instinct of the zombie within me clamors to destroy this land, while the remnants of my human intellect guide me step by step toward victory. I desire Rishufu, and I also desire Haimen. Since foolish humans think you'll attack Rishufu, let me indulge you. I'll release some bait. Oh? Are you prepared for battle? Want to kill me? Too bad. I've already stealthily infiltrated Haimen, catching you off guard. Haimen is indeed a tough nut to crack, but once I bite into it, the path ahead will be clear. I can conquer the entire alliance. Zhuang Qingyan's knuckles rhythmically tapped, his eyes deep, deliberately lowering his voice to a husky tone, vividly simulating the psychological activity of a zombie. The others got goosebumps all over. Wow, this person is so twisted. Why say Hyman is hard to bite into? Song K innocently asked, completely unaware of the abnormal atmosphere. The teammates chimed in, eagerly answering, hoping Zhuang Qingyan would stop talking. It was creeping them out. Lu Xiaoyu. Hyman is the most important granary in the East. Be it the total production, goods, or exports, it ranks first in the alliance. According to scientific statistics, below District C, 1 out of every 3 meals includes food from Hyman. Lin Yuyu. Hyman has vast land, the largest area within District D, but the population is less than 10 million. Due to the sparse population, people live affluent lives. The locals are bold, straightforward, and don't bother with trifles. Xu Xing. My dad once said, people from Hyman are big and simple, wealthy, and easily deceived. Everyone turned to look at him simultaneously, questioning his choice of words. What kind of parenting is that? Saying such things could cause trouble if heard by people from Hyman. Xu Xing belatedly covered his mouth. Oops, inadvertently letting out the latter part of his sentence. Fang Jishu stroked his chin thoughtfully. I've heard from colleagues that people from Hyman aren't very good at arguing. Song K. Why is that? Fang Jishu. Because before you finish saying lines like, what are you looking at? And, what are you gonna do about it? The other person's fist has already landed on your face. Song K. That sounds like quite an interesting city. Are you sure the Zombie King will go to Hyman? Song K turned to Zhuang Qingyan and asked. 70% certain. Zhuang Qingyan nodded, not elaborating further. After pondering for 2 seconds, Song K decisively slapped the table. Then, let's go to Hyman. When the captain speaks, everyone must follow suit. To Hyman, go, go, go. Lu Xiaoyu floored the accelerator, the SUV speeding through the wilderness, scattering zombies like flower petals. In the quiet car, Lin Yuyu nudged Lu Xiaoyu and whispered, hey, that viral clip, send it to me. I want it too, I want it too. Xu Xing called out quietly from the front seat. Su Cha didn't say a word, simply pointing at his own terminal, making his intentions clear. Lu Xiaoyu maneuvered a mechanical arm and quickly sent the clip directly to V587's group chat. The terminal vibrated, and Song K, half asleep, woke up in a daze. Her fingers moved faster than her brain, reflexively tapping to open the message, immediately followed by a stunned expression. Unsend that, right now. Before nightfall, V587 completed check-in points in 4 safe cities and smoothly arrived at the outskirts of District D-135's Hyman. There were no signs of a zombie horde in the wilderness, just a few scattered zombies. Some held shovels and sickles, some staggered aimlessly near irrigation machines and plow axles, while others gnawed on tractors and plows, their hollow, decaying eyes devoid of any emotion. If it weren't for the apocalypse, it would be the season for spring sowing now. Fang Jishu sighed. As they approached a 3-story mansion, sounds of a scuffle echoed from the front. A group of a dozen people, armed and engaged in a fierce battle against zombies, caught their attention. The most conspicuous figure was a burly man, towering at least 6 feet tall. He wore a massive gold chain around his neck, a large gold watch on his wrist, a flashy shirt, and what seemed to be a fur or mink coat draped over him. His shoes shone so brightly they nearly reflected light. Song K climbed onto the roof of the car and looked around. This group seemed to lack any supernatural abilities. They were all regular people. Even though they were ordinary, their fighting capabilities were not to be underestimated. Get off me! The burly man, over 6 feet tall, kicked a lurching zombie away. His flesh quivered, and beside him, a suited bodyguard lifted a golf club, ruthlessly smashing the zombie's head, denting it inward. Look at your bear-like appearance, dare to come onto my territory and cause trouble. Did I give you permission? The burly man grumbled and cursed while kicking the zombie. His aggression grew. Come on then. While observing the scuffle between them and the zombies without much concern, Song K crouched down, preparing to get back into the car. However, a faint, ghostly blue glint suddenly caught her peripheral vision. She froze, abruptly lifting her head. The burly man from afar drew a wide-blade short knife and sliced straight towards the zombie's head. The knife seemed to cut through it effortlessly, separating the zombie's head from its body as blood sprayed out like a fountain. Song K's gaze became fixed. If she wasn't mistaken, that was a machete? Stop the car. She opened the car door and hurried towards the group. Having just managed to deal with the zombies besieging their mansion, Wang Hu was covered in sweat. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "It's already spring, wearing a fur coat is a bit hot, huh?" He opened his collar to cool off and unexpectedly noticed a young girl walking towards him. "Yo," Wang Hu sighed inwardly. His eyes were quite perceptive. "Check out that presence, not your average person." The young girl stopped in front of him, staring directly at the machete in his hand. "What are you looking at?" the bodyguard next to him asked in a rough voice. Startled by his loud voice, Song K reflexively responded, "Looking." "What are you looking at?" The bodyguard raised his eyebrows, the golf club ready to move. Was this little troublemaker trying to provoke something? "Hey, put it down, put it down," Wang Hu generously gestured with his hand. "Easy now, let her take a look." He proudly hoisted the machete onto his shoulder, asking in a casual manner, "How about it? Were you impressed by my zombie hacking prowess?" Exerting too much force, the back of the machete accidentally cut through his fur. "Oh, my God!" Wang Hu jumped in distress, trying to cover his clothes and handle the machete at the same time, flustered and wailing, "My precious." Kindly, Song K reached out and helped him stabilize the familiar machete. "Can I take a look at your machete?" Sure. Wang Hu barely paid attention to her. Song K turned the blade over and looked down. Indeed, there was a small song on the handle of the machete. This was her spiritual weapon. How could it appear here? Moreover, she had only produced this standardized spiritual weapon once, back in Wa City, a total of 100 pieces, as part of a deal for those students at the #1 middle school. "Where did you get this machete from?" Song K asked. "What, are you interested too?" Wang Hu glanced at her, then protectively snatched the machete back. "My 1,000 Deaths Blue Enchantress of Cataclysmic Annihilation is quite powerful, but not something most people can handle. I acquired this from the black market in the northern base through someone. It's an absolutely genuine supernatural weapon. It cuts zombies like slicing through watermelons. There are less than 5 in the entire black market. I spent a whopping 2 million. Wang Hu bragged triumphantly. How much?" Song K exclaimed in shock. Chapter 123. Life and Death Marathon, 14, Doomsday Spiritual Artifact Master. For just 28,888, bring home the zombie-slaying artifact. Upon hearing the figure of 2 million, Song K's expression seemed trance-like. Wang Hu, assuming she was intimidated by his substantial wealth, proudly displayed his lavishness by swinging his heavy gold chain to the sides, then waved generously, saying, "It might be a bit pricey, but luckily, it offers great value for the money. I'm fortunate to have stumbled upon it. Others couldn't even buy it if they wanted." "Great value for the money? Really?" Song K swallowed hard, hesitating. "It might only last for 2 or 3 years. It doesn't seem very cost-effective, does it? You gotta be kidding. Have you ever used the 1,000 Deaths Blue Enchantress of Cataclysmic Annihilation weapon? Do you even know what you're talking about?" I don't." "Of course, you don't." Wang Hu glared, looking ready to argue with her. "Those high-tech weapons, too complicated for me. I'd be gasping for air if zombies got too close. But with my precious here, I just swing and slash, and all the zombies back off." Song K fell silent, unable to respond. Suddenly, she thought of something, her eyes shining with excitement. Her expression turned sincere. If there were still cataclysmic annihilation. Blue Enchantress, Thousand Deaths. Blue Enchantress of cataclysmic annihilation, Wang Hu corrected her matter-of-factly. Ah, right, Song Ke nodded. If there were more, would you buy them? Well, Wang Hu glanced at the golf clubs his bodyguards used, rubbing his chin in contemplation. It's a bit extravagant. If I replaced all of them, it would cost a dozen or so. Sigh, even for someone wealthy like me, it's a bit painful. It'd be great if there were discounts for bulk purchases. There are discounts. Song Ke raised her voice, breaking into excitement. Wang Hu eyed her suspiciously. Hey, who are you? You've been acting strange. Do you have any opinions about my precious items? No opinions. Song Ke shook her head quickly. I have a friend who can get this. She subtly moved her hand and pulled out a kunai from her coat pocket. The blade was entirely azure, emitting a chilling light, oddly similar to the machete Wang Hu held. You can get it from my friend for way less than 2 million, Song Ke stated firmly. However, the exact price would need discussion with Zhuang Qingyan and the others. Wang Hu's eyes lit up. Come on, little friend, let's exchange contact info. If there's stock, let me know first. I don't need it delivered. I'll pick it up myself. In an abandoned gas station in the wilderness, an SUV parked by the roadside. Lu Xiaoyu extended a mechanical arm to charge the vehicle with an energy gun. The rest of the V-587 team stretched their muscles. From this vantage point, they could already see the urban area of Haimen. Rolling hills extended endlessly, and a mighty river flowed through the bottom plain, forming a natural barrier. Coupled with the 3 layers of inner and outer city walls, Haimen's central area was impregnable, comparable to Shay. For the Zombie King to attack Haimen, he would need to cross the river first and then breach 3 formidable defense lines. The difficulty level was exceedingly high. No wonder the magistrate of Haimen once openly stated that to conquer Haimen, one would have to open all 3 doors from the inside. Song Ke sat on the car roof, swinging her legs, watching Su Cha and Fang Jishu retrieve supplies from the convenience store. Although most of the food had expired, they managed to find some non-perishable drinks and dry goods to replenish their stock. Do you want to sell the spiritual weapons to the people of Haimen? Zhuang Qingyan's wheelchair stopped in front of her. He looked up at her. The curve from his chin to his neck was remarkably smooth, and the protruding Adam's apple moved as he spoke. Yeah, can I? Song Ke asked eagerly. Of course, Zhuang Qingyan smiled, brushing off the mud splattered on her legs. The weapons belong to you. You can decide. I want to earn a lot of money, sighed Captain Song Ke, a financially strapped individual. She jumped down from the car roof and patted Zhuang Qingyan's legs with a meaningful expression, to support all of you. She had to support the old, Fang Jishu, and the young, Xu Xing. She had to take care of an injured patient who was still recovering, and there was also a gold-swallowing beast who'd yell every day to buy materials. It's very stressful. Zhuang Qingyan looked at Song Ke with a complex expression. His Adam's apple moved unnaturally. If he hadn't known that the other party didn't mean that, this behavior would have constituted serious sexual harassment. You. What's wrong? Song Ke tilted her head, unaware of his discomfort. Captain, check your account. Lu Xiaoyu leaned out from the driver's seat, interrupting the slightly intimate atmosphere between the two. Song Ke opened her terminal and widened her eyes in surprise. When did an additional 1.5 million appear in her account? Lu Xiaoyu, with pride in his ice-blue eyes, proudly explained, counting the interest, we retrieved 1.5 million from that unscrupulous old man as your growth compensation fee. You're so amazing, Song Ke exclaimed, giving him a thumbs up with joy. Then can you buy rhenium for me? Lu Xiaoyu pushed further, the corners of his mouth stiffening. Can? No, you can't, Zhuang Qingyan coldly interrupted their conversation. Stop smiling. Your smile is really sycophantic. Lu Xiaoyu stared at him expressionlessly for 2 seconds, then thud, he closed the car window. Song K blinked, hesitant to speak. Zhuang Qingyan explained in a calmer tone, his request is unreasonable. Rhenium is too costly, and the amount you have isn't enough for his whims. Don't buy it for him. Thud thud, protests from Lu Xiaoyu hitting the car roof echoed from inside the SUV. Zhuang Qingyan ignored his anger, seemingly indifferent. If mass-produced, how many spiritual weapons can you create at once? Song K thought for a moment. Her awakened energy had increased significantly compared to 6 months ago, considering the production rate in Hua City at that time. 500. 500 was a safe number, not pushing her to her limit and allowing her to maintain combat strength after their creation. About right, enough to arm an elite force. Let's go with 500, Zhuang Qingyan nodded. How much should we sell them for? Song K whispered, could they not be too expensive? She intended to sell the spiritual artifacts, partly to make money for their small treasury and partly to aid the people of Hyman in better resisting the zombie tide. Her intention wasn't to extort them but to seize the opportunity for a disaster profit. Not expensive, but not too cheap either. After all, you've worked hard, Zhuang Qingyan smiled at her reassuringly. Don't worry, I'll consider the average economic status of the people in Hyman. I'll ensure it's within their means and they'll be willing to buy. A group of strong civilians was driving zombies away in the outskirts. Some wielded baseball bats and knives, while others dragged suitcases, pulled chairs, bravely striking the zombies. However, despite their ferocity, their tools fell short. Baseball bats cracked, knives dulled, suitcases and chairs ended up worn out. Soon, they found themselves defenseless. Among the zombies, there was a level 2 zombie, agile and swift, jumping up and down. It swiftly caught a person off guard, roaring as it lunged to bite. Swoosh, swoosh. Several flying knives pierced through the air, penetrating the zombie's head, splattering black-red brain matter across the ground. The civilians, in a frenzy, helped their fallen comrade, looking up towards the unexpected saviors. An SUV gradually halted in front of them, then reversed, revealing its trunk. Thud! A masked woman opened the rear door enthusiastically. Friends, have you heard of spiritual weapons? On the back of the door hung an array of various weapons, all emanating a chilling blue glow. Lin Yuyu's lips moved swiftly, reciting a meticulously prepared advertisement. Feeling unsafe during the apocalypse at home? Don't panic, Song's spiritual artifacts are ready. Encounter a zombie? Don't fear, whip out a spiritual weapon and let's handle it together. Ding ding ding. Today's special offer. Just for 28,888. Bring home the zombie-slaying artifact. Limited quantity, while supplies last. The group of civilians stared blankly at her. Lin Yuyu snapped her fingers. Open up, bring out Su Cha. Su Cha. In a lightning-fast move, he swooped low over the zombie's head. The decaying hand stretched out to grab his pant leg, but before it touched, his blue-bladed short knife clang severed its head. In less than 5 minutes, Su Cha dispatched more than a dozen zombies. Lin Yuyu's eyes gleamed mischievously, lips curved. How about it? Want one? Limited edition, you know. I'll buy, the civilians suddenly shouted. Similar scenes played out repeatedly around Hayman's outskirts. V-587 would rescue the civilians and then proceed to pitch, or rather exhibit, the available spiritual weapons to them. Come and see, don't miss out. Check my goods, cheap and effective. Buy some of my goods and guarantee a happy return home. Just 28,888 for a spiritual weapon, no regrets, no scams. Uncles and aunties, want to buy a spiritual weapon? Su Cha. Selling, never mind. He couldn't bring himself to speak, so he plunged into killing zombies, using actions as his loudest advertisement. Song K laid on the car roof contentedly, reflecting, I feel like Lin Yuyu shouldn't be a pop star. Out of the 500 spiritual artifacts, 380 were sold in less than 2 hours. Lin Yuyu alone sold over 300, rightly earning the title of top salesperson. With her talent, she should pursue sales. Forget being among the top 10 rising stars, she could definitely become the leading influencer for Ferreira's merchandise. In the passenger seat, Zhuang Qingyan glanced at the map of Haimen. The night had already enveloped the area. Not only was there no sign of the Zombie King's shadow, but even the expected zombie tide hadn't shown any activity. Haimen remained as calm as ever, with no discernible changes. Had his speculation been wrong? Haimen, a small, thinly bundled girl, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a scarf, hurriedly crossed the streets. Her eyes wide with confusion, she looked left and right, swiftly making her way forward, her pace quickening into a run. Thud! Just as she turned the corner, the girl collided head-on with someone else. The sturdy man took a step back, gruffly shouting, "Hey! Can't you watch where you're going?" Looking down, he saw a young girl, probably around 13 or 14, sprawled on the ground in a daze. Her scarf had slipped halfway down, revealing her gray eyes. As if realizing something, she frantically tried to pull the scarf back up to cover her face. Seeing her as just a kid, the man didn't feel right to argue further. With irritation, he said, "Watch where you're going next time." The girl mumbled a couple of words and hurriedly lowered her head. Her voice sounded hoarse, and her speaking seemed peculiar. The man muttered to himself as he moved away, "Mixed blood." The girl, using her hands, picked herself up from the ground. A couple of messy braids fell carelessly, exposing distinct corpse-like markings on her neck. Standing up straight, she dared not run again, slowly fading into the darkness. Chapter 124. Life and Death Marathon, 15, Doomsday Spiritual Artifact Master. Braided head self-perception. The deep gray SUV drove through the open fields, gradually approaching the roaring waves of the riverbank. In front of Song K and the others appeared the only passage into the Haimen urban area, a magnificent bridge soaring over the river like a flying rainbow. The entire bridge was divided into 2 levels. The upper level delineated lanes for floating vehicles, starships, and other suspended tools with neon signal lights. The lower level consisted of 8 lanes for regular vehicles, spanning over 1.5 kilometers. From a distance, it looked like a giant dragon lying horizontally, forming the most critical lifeline in Haimen. Lu Xiaoyu turned the steering wheel, preparing to enter the lower-level lanes. However, before reaching the bridge toll booth, the station sentry signaled for an immediate stop. Rows of jet-black heavy machine guns stood ready, their elongated magazines hanging from mounts, emitting a silent but intimidating presence. "Wow, so cool," Xu Xing leaned halfway out of the window, admiringly exclaiming. Generally, most boys were fascinated by firearms. Xu Xing mimicked the action of firing a machine gun, making pew 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 sounds, thoroughly enjoying himself. The sentries all simultaneously turned their gun barrels toward their SUV. Song K and Xu Xing immediately raised their hands, while Lu Xiaoyu whistled and impeccably lifted his 6 mechanical arms. The sentries tensed up, ready to act against the perceived threat, about to pull the trigger. "Don't misunderstand, we're competitors." Song K frantically attempted to press down Lu Xiaoyu's claw. Just as she managed to press it down, it popped up again. Frustrated, Song K smacked his head, finally calming him down. A drone, displaying the logo of the throne race competition, hovered above the SUV. The sentries remained vigilant, shouting loudly, "Stop immediately and undergo inspection." Lu Xiaoyu stopped playing around and obediently pressed the brake. The diligent sentries conducted a thorough search and interrogation for a full 15 minutes. Only after confirming repeatedly with the city hall were they allowed to proceed. As they distanced themselves from the checkpoint, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "Hell's scythe," Zhuang Qingyan murmured softly, "good stuff." "What's that?" The people in the car wore confused expressions. Zhuang Qingyan pointed to the neatly arranged heavy machine guns outside the car window, saying, "These guns are produced in Mu City. They fire an average of 1,500 bullets per minute, with a precise shooting range of 1 kilometer and a maximum range of 5 kilometers. They can sustain heavy firepower against distant targets. The production line for Hell's Scythe was bought out long ago, exclusively for the northern base. It seems Hyman has done thorough preparation, Liu Xiaoyu murmured disdainfully. They're really wealthy. Song Ke was once again astonished by the wealth of the people in Hyman. District D had no access restrictions. V-587, amidst the unwelcoming gazes of the sentries along the way, crossed the river and approached 3 heavily fortified lines of defense. Brick walls with high-voltage electric fences stood tall under the sky, safeguarding the people of Hyman in their haven amidst the apocalypse. Outside the walls, everything was meticulously cleared, with no wandering zombies or mutated beasts in sight. Upon entering each defense line, armed sentries rushed out to inspect them, escorting them with the presence of their numerous gun barrels. Creak, the heavy iron gate slowly lifted, and the SUV carrying 7 people entered the urban area of Hyman amid the swirling dust. Because they took a shortcut, V-587 was the first team to arrive in Hyman. Lin Yuyu supported her chin, sighing, I believe, with everything fortified like this, even the zombie king wouldn't be able to break in. It's practically impregnable. Maybe not. Zhuang Qingyan lightly tapped his fingertip, offering a faint response. Huh? What else could it possibly do? Lin Yuyu's accent gradually mimicked the locals of Hyman. Zhuang Qingyan didn't answer, but instead a familiar villain smile appeared on his face. If you were the zombie king, how would you attack Hyman? Whoa, that's a twisted, what if? At first, they strongly disapproved verbally, but then they eagerly started discussing. Xu Xing enthusiastically raised his hand, I'd freeze the river surface. Zhuang Qingyan replied, with a river this wide and your limited awakened energy, you couldn't even fill its gaps. Xu Xing wilted. Liu Xiaoyu lifted his chin lightly, I could enter openly. He had just observed that the defense line had 2 opening modes, automatic and manual. With a mere movement of his finger, the iron gate would open for him. You might get in, but I bet those sentries have been eagerly waiting for you, ready to turn you into a hornet's nest with smiles. Zhuang Qingyan nodded. Liu Xiaoyu, it was Su Chao's turn. He said hesitantly, I could sneak in, hopefully without being noticed. If you can sneak in alone, what about your zombie subordinates? Lin Yuyu chuckled softly behind her hand, countering faster than Zhuang Qingyan, plus, who leads a charge among the undead? Fang Jishu shook his head directly, don't ask me, I have no idea. What about the captain? Liu Xiaoyu asked. Well, I'm still thinking. Song Ke wore a serious expression, although her mind was blank, unable to come up with any solution. Once again, our captain remains calm, never speaking without thought, Zhuang Qingyan praised, utterly devoid of principles. Others, flatterer, what's your plan, then? Xu Xing retorted indignantly. The carriage jostled slightly, and Zhuang Qingyan looked at the rearview mirror. At the final iron gate, several large food airdrop containers were being stopped by the sentries, who opened and scanned them top to bottom with life detectors, finding no traces of anything amiss. Zhuang Qingyan's voice was low, if I were the zombie king, I'd tell the people of Hyman one thing, darkness under the lamp. V-587. What's with the riddles again? Even after the SUV had been driving for a while, his gaze remained fixed in the direction of the iron gate. What are you thinking? Song Ke leaned over and asked. Thinking about a classic battle from ancient times, Zhuang Qingyan spoke somberly, the Trojan War. Ellipsis. They spent nearly 2 hours searching in Hyman, but the check-in point was nowhere to be found, making it clear it hadn't appeared yet. The sky had darkened completely, pedestrian traffic on the streets had decreased, and V-587 was clueless and at a loss. Suddenly, Xu Xing rubbed his eyes in disbelief and pointed outside, murmuring, braided head? Across the street, a relaxed figure was leisurely strolling around. It would lean against shop windows for a moment, then glance at a garden, and when tired, it knew to sit on a bench to rest. Capture it, Zhuang Qingyan said coldly. Song Ke and Su Cha opened the car doors and dashed across the street like lightning. The braided head, visibly startled, jumped in place, and tried to flee. However, its speed couldn't match that of two top-tier awakeners. Song Ke leapt high from the roof of the car, diving and forcefully tackling it to the ground. The braided head struggled and its hat fell off, revealing most of its scarf. The clear lines of decay were visible on its profile. It twisted to bite Song Ke, but before it could, Su Cha grabbed something from a nearby garbage truck and stuffed it into its mouth. Coincidentally, it was a used diaper. The braided head froze instantly, abandoning resistance. Its throat convulsed, exhibiting a look of pure disgust as if it had been sickened. Its expression was incredibly vivid, barely any different from that of a human. Zhuang Qingyan silently stared at it. Xu Xing jumped out of the car, hesitatingly approaching Braided Head's side. Encountering a zombie within the heavily fortified city, a normal person's initial reaction would definitely be to kill it. The commotion had already attracted the attention of passers-by, and patrolling sentries were approaching. Zhuang Qingyan lowered his voice, "Take it away." Song Ke lifted Braided Head with one hand and tossed it into the car, and the SUV sped away. The faithful drone captured everything, causing an explosion of comments from viewers watching the live stream from Ferrara. "Oh my god, is that a zombie? If I'm not blind, that's definitely a zombie. You're not blind, that's indeed a zombie. Can someone tell me why there's a zombie in Heyman's urban area? Are the sentries just for show? Does anyone have the contact information for Heyman's City Hall? Alert them quickly." Ferrara Hotel. He Cho-hong's gaze intensified, and the lines around her nose deepened suddenly. Without hesitation, she initiated a communication. "Captain Yin Xiao, I'd like to request the Tuston team to fulfill a personal task of mine. Commander He, if I remember correctly, I am currently enjoying my hard-earned break. Pay, Reid," Yin Xiao drawled leisurely, elongating his tone. "Are you openly asking me to work overtime? Will there be overtime pay?" Ignoring his impertinence, He Chu-hong calmly said, "I'm asking you to immediately go to District D-135 and capture a mutated zombie. I believe Dr. Ning's research team will find it very interesting." District D-135? Yin Xiao's lazy tone vanished instantly, replaced by a hint of surprise. "I happen to be watching the throne race competition. Are you referring to Song? I mean, the Team V587 in Heyman. That's right, I want you to capture the zombie alive before they kill it." "Well, overtime is possible, as long as you remember to pay triple the commission fee." Yin Xiao strangely changed his tune, agreeing quite readily. "Thank you for your hard work." The SUV stopped at an abandoned factory, and the bound Braided Head was thrown to the ground. It tried to run, but its limbs were tightly bound. It stumbled after just a couple of steps and fell flat. A metal wheelchair rolled slowly in front of it. Zhuang Qingyan observed it with lowered eyes, appearing like an unfeeling deity capable of deciding its life or death at any moment. Feeling threatened, Braided Head let out a hoarse roar from deep in its throat, baring its teeth viciously at Zhuang Qingyan. Its pointed teeth weren't as sharp as other zombies, resembling underdeveloped canine teeth. "Shut your mouth, or I'll pull out all your teeth," Zhuang Qingyan threatened. Quote! Exclamation mark! Quote. Braided Head whimpered and surprisingly shut its mouth obediently. It understands," Fang Jishu exclaimed in surprise, assuming that the fallen had only retained consciousness, never expecting it to communicate with humans. Zhuang Qingyan asked in a low voice, "You understand what we're saying, right?" Braided Head hesitated for 2 seconds and reluctantly nodded. "Why did you infiltrate Heyman?" Braided Head tilted its head back and let out a couple of random shouts. Zhuang Qingyan, untie its hands. Su Cha cut the ropes with a dagger, freeing Braided Head, whose stiff fingers clumsily drew an unfamiliar pattern in the sand. V587 was utterly baffled. What kind of bizarre symbol was this? Even if it understood, could it not communicate? With hands behind his back, Shu Xing circled the pattern twice and suddenly exclaimed, "I got it! This is the Zombie King." "Ah, Braided Head exclaimed excitedly. "Xiao Xing, how did you figure it out?" Song Ke humbly asked. "These are wings, and these are blood vessels, quite easy to recognize," Shu Xing explained confidently, pointing at the dark and intricate drawing. Quote ellipsis comma quote. Everyone was speechless. How did they not recognize it? "Are you saying you were sent by the Zombie King?" Zhuang Qingyan shifted the conversation. "Apart from you, how many similar zombies have entered?" Braided Head's gray eyes moved slowly, seemingly surprised that Zhuang Qingyan knew it had companions. Like a child caught in wrongdoing, it sneakily glanced at Zhuang Qingyan, then lowered its head, pretending to think, before starting to draw little figures in the sand, one after another, row after row, quickly filling 2 lines and not stopping. "It says there are many more," Shu Xing blinked, taking the role of the zombie language interpreter seriously. "Thank you for making that clear." Zhuang Qingyan's eyes grew colder. "Was your mission to open the 3 iron gates from inside?" Braided Head's drawing paused abruptly, as if hitting a wall. Zhuang Qingyan pressed on. "Why didn't you act together with your companions?" When V-587 captured Braided Head, it behaved like someone taking a leisurely stroll, as if casually roaming the streets without any sense of carrying a heavy burden. Braided Head struggled, scratching the ground with its fingers for a while. Eventually, it sluggishly drew a vertical dividing line. On the left side, it drew a cluster of unknown symbols, and on the right side, another set of these symbols. Everyone looked to Shu Xing, waiting for his translation. Even Shu Xing found himself a little puzzled this time. He crouched down, studying it for a while. Braided Head enthusiastically explained to him, "Ah. Shu Xing nodded and pointed confidently at the left side. "This is you." Braided Head exclaimed, "Ah." It quickly added a few strokes on the right side, connecting a line to the earlier drawing of the Zombie King. Shu Xing continued, "This is the bad side of you." Braided Head exclaimed again, "Ah." Zhuang Qingyan looked at the strange pile of symbols on the ground, a hint of a smile on his lips. "You want to tell us that the fallen are divided into 2 factions. One identifies with its former existence as a human and doesn't want to be involved in conflicts. The other has completely sided with the Zombie King, willingly becoming its followers. Is that right?" Braided Head nodded happily, its stiff neck making crackling sounds. Zhuang Qingyan slowed down his speech. "Oh? So, which side do you belong to?" This time, Braided Head hesitated for a very long time. Carefully, it lifted its finger and slowly drew a line, connecting the good self to Shu Xing's feet. Chapter 125. Life and Death Marathon, 16, Doomsday Spiritual Artifact Master. We meet again, Song Ke. The girl with braided hair seemed a bit timid in her actions, yet she firmly linked herself with Shu Xing. At that moment, anyone could understand its significance. It chose the side of humanity, even though it no longer belonged to the human category. The audience squatting in the V-587 live broadcast room instantly erupted into contrasting opinions. "Don't be naive. How could a zombie empathize with humans? What are you doing? Quickly kill it. You don't seriously believe a word from a zombie, do you?" "But I feel, it sounds genuine. Can the holy talk just leave? My whole family was bitten by zombies, and I don't share the sky with them." The discussion about this unique zombie grew increasingly heated. The director realized a new focal point for viewership and switched the drone to focus on Braided Head's face, capturing the patterns of decay. The gray eyes of the girl blinked without pause as her head followed the movement of the drone. Suddenly, without warning, she snarled fiercely at the camera. "Ah!" Its gaping mouth, contorted face, and menacingly sharp teeth seemed as though they would snap the neck of anyone on the other side of the screen at any moment. The argumentative barrage in the live chat momentarily froze, replaced by a flood of unintelligible characters. The hyper-realistic experience from the high-definition images left a considerable psychological impact on the audience. It took a while before someone tremblingly muttered, "See, a zombie is just a zombie." Braided Head's hands dug into the ground, a hint of triumph flashing across her face. "Alert the Haimen City Hall to investigate suspicious individuals within the city," Zhuang Qingyan quickly stated. "I'll contact them now." Lin Yuyu summoned the terminal interface. Zhuang Qingyan then turned to Song Ke, lowering his voice. "Captain, a few words in private." Song Ke nodded and walked over. Zhuang Qingyan glanced at the drone and tapped twice on the armrest of Lu Xiaoyu's wheelchair. "Private talk, didn't you hear? Sort it out." Lu Xiaoyu rolled his eyes, his fingers swiftly moving. Soon, several drone signals were lost, resembling headless flies buzzing radically at low altitudes, and the V587 live stream room filled with static, displaying a technical malfunction message. "How do you plan to handle her?" The two walked into a corner, and Zhuang Qingyan asked in a low voice. His demeanor was very natural, but after spending so much time together, Song Ke was already familiar with the subtle changes in his expressions. Though Zhuang Qingyan used an inquiring tone, his eyes betrayed indifference, indicating that he didn't care about the life or death of Braided Head. Song Ke had a vague feeling that every time Zhuang Qingyan talked about the Plan Eternity, or mentioned the Fallen, his emotions became complex. It seemed to mix some kind of hidden disgust and rejection that he couldn't openly express. "I'm thinking of finding a more distant place," Song Ke calmly voiced her thoughts, and leaving it there. In truth, she didn't have a better solution. Braided Head wasn't entirely human or a zombie. She seemed more like a new species born after the apocalypse. Although she didn't attack proactively and was even sent as a spy by the Zombie King, humans wouldn't accept her. "Okay, Captain's decision." Zhuang Qingyan had no objections regardless of whether Song Ke chose to kill or spare her. "But there's one thing, we weren't cautious when we first captured her. Now, with the throne race broadcast spreading, I'm worried that some might become overly interested in her, causing trouble for us. Our team isn't suitable for attracting too much attention," Zhuang Qingyan said slowly. Most of the V587 team members carried secrets. For instance, Song Ke's inexplicable wound healing speed, Fang Jishu's peculiar constitution that prevented zombie attacks, Lin Yuyu's true identity, and Zhuang Qingyan and Lu Xiaoyu. Then, Song Ke quickly made a decision. "Shall we find a place to leave her now?" As they walked back, Shu Xing and Braided Head were lying side by side on the sand, their heads next to each other, drawing. Lin Yuyu gestured toward them. "The communication channel has been occupied. Probably bombarded by viewers watching the live stream." Song Ke was about to say something when suddenly, a piercing alarm shattered the night. "Level 1 alert! Level 1 alert! Multiple zombie waves detected approaching. All sentinels assemble immediately." Their faces paled. The zombie wave was indeed heading toward Haimen. They wondered whether this was another feigned attack to deceive them or if it was the Zombie King's all-out assault. "Let's go check it out." Song Ke decisively took charge. The SUV restarted. She turned to Braided Head. With no time to arrange her destination, she had to carefully negotiate. "Your appearance might be mistaken for a zombie by others, which is dangerous. Come with us for now." Ah. Braided Head obediently nodded, hands planted on the ground. "Braided Head, with me here, I'll protect you." Shu Xing beside her patted his chest, making a manly promise. Ha. Braided Head disdainfully straightened up, towering significantly taller than Shu Xing. Shu, shorty. Xing's self-esteem collapsed. On the streets, vehicles rushed by, houses lit up, and the bustling noise echoed continuously. The SUV halted behind the final defense line, bright lights overhead illuminating the area like daylight. The official armed forces of Haimen swiftly and orderly moved through emergency passages, setting up heavy weapons on the city walls. Despite the temporary nocturnal siege, they remained composed. In front of everyone stood a massive floating screen, the connected thermal imaging continually emitting alarms, the frequency increasing. From the screen, numerous green radiation sources could be seen rapidly approaching Hyman from all directions. However, the real-time monitoring showed a calm scene, with the high-altitude scanners outside the city patrolling, finding no abnormalities. A mild late spring breeze brushed their faces, the river's surface gently undulating, the desolate wilderness quiet and still. At both ends of the bridge, the tense sentinels gripped their hell scythes, guns aimed squarely at the dark plains. 1 minute passed, then 2, 5 minutes elapsed. The anxious people of Hyman started whispering at first, then gradually the chatter grew louder. Where were the zombies? Where was the zombie tide? The same question flashed through everyone's mind. Beneath the night sky, the river water began to surge. Rolling waves formed dark rings, swiftly surging on both sides of the bridge across the river. A sentinel at the bridge wiped his damp palms, nervousness evident, as waves crashed against the shore. His determined gaze fixated forward. At any sign of movement on the plains, he would not hesitate to open fire. Suddenly, the sound of waves hitting the bank behind them. The sentinel shivered, alertly turning the machine gun. Before he could discern what was approaching, 5 or 6 drenched zombies leapt from the river, instantly overpowering him, tearing him into pieces. The piercing scream sent chills down everyone's spines. What was more terrifying happened next. After the first sentinel's death, countless zombie heads surfaced on the river, forming an expansive cluster resembling floating gourds. The sight was enough to drive someone with a fear of clusters insane. Gunners at the bridgehead and city walls unleashed relentless gunfire. The scythes were akin to the reaper of life. Bullets poured out in continuous streams, sinking numerous zombies. Their bodies floated like balloons, yet their numbers were overwhelming. Often submerging to evade gunfire and hindered by the surging water, they made targeting difficult. The rushing currents impeded the firearms range, making it impossible to inflict effective damage for a while. Soon, a horde of zombies crossed the river, sprinting in groups towards the first iron gate. Pull the switch quickly, yelled the guards within the defenses. The high-voltage electric grid crackled and the front line of zombies instantly fell, their bodies charred. A strong stench of decay drifted into the city on the wind. However, the following zombies stepped over the fallen, fiercely charging forward. The crisis didn't cease. From beneath the river's surface, an unending stream of undead reinforcements emerged. Humanity, overly confident in the great river's protection, never imagined that the Zombie King had trained a zombie army well versed in aquatic warfare. Zombies don't need to breathe, they don't require oxygen, they can adapt to extreme pressure, perfect for prolonged deep dives. Zhuang Qingyun's gaze turned icy. But under the right deployment, the Zombie King could silently send his troops. Its capabilities are probably more terrifying than we estimated. Song Ke peered out from the car's rooftop. Do we need to help? Zhuang Qingyun shook his head. Intervening now might disrupt the counterattack's rhythm. Let's wait. Hyman isn't defenseless. The defenders atop the city walls, under immense pressure of life and death, unleashed astonishing speed. Artillery and explosive rounds were launched relentlessly, the destructive power of heavy weapons quickly curbing the zombie assault, completing the first wave clearance, creating heaps of debris outside the defenses. Braided Head suddenly stuck her head against the car window and made 2 "aw" sounds. Song Ke glanced down at her, realization dawning. I almost forgot, you have accomplices, eager to cause chaos. The dark gray SUV restarted, heading towards the first iron gate. Between the 3 defense lines, there was a commercial area. Currently, the emergency passages were congested with people. Officials in charge of evacuation shouted at the top of their lungs, safe zones are open. Civilians, retreat quickly. Let the elderly, women, and children go first. As the main forces marched through, an officer hurriedly ran towards the control room, preparing to close the emergency entrance. Unbeknownst to him, in the darkness, a few pairs of cloudy gray eyes were fixed on him. Just as he pressed the control panel, someone within the civilian queue suddenly turned and hurled an unidentified object at him. Bang! Those gasoline-like items struck the control panel, erupting into flames and causing a series of explosions, resulting in a short circuit. The high-voltage electric grid outside the city walls sizzled twice before gradually dimming. The civilians were startled to discover a traitor among them. Panic-stricken, they looked at the troublemakers, then shouted, "Zombies! Zombies have infiltrated!" The high-voltage electric grid suddenly failed. Even when the backup power was activated, there was about a minute of silence. The zombies attacking the city, free from the threat of electric shock, became even more ferocious in their charge. Meanwhile, heavy and chaotic footsteps echoed from the horizon, signaling the arrival of the second wave of zombies on land. The defense line in Hyman instantly became strained. Sentinels on the bridge over the river frantically sprayed the planes, trying to halt the reinforcements. Meanwhile, zombies from the water seized the opportunity to leap onto the city walls, ruthlessly biting into the humans within the defenses. Witnessing a sharp decline in armed sentinels and a rapid weakening of firepower, the Awakeners in Hyman took action, swiftly rushing to the front line. The evacuated civilians also turned back abruptly, looking at the collapsed walls and their kin being slaughtered, their eyes burning with fury. PTEW, my ancestors were all from Hyman, born and raised on this land. Even in death, we won't let you bastards occupy Hyman. Just zombies? We'll fight you to the end. The call was echoed by hundreds as thousands of valiant residents of Hyman raised their weapons, engaging in a fierce battle against the zombies. Let's go. Song K and the others lagged behind, unable to identify the fallen among the crowd. From the current situation, it was evident that this zombie tide wasn't a feigned attack. The Zombie King was sure to appear. Intense fighting erupted outside the city of Hyman. Reinforcements arrived from the sky, teams participating in the throne race like 3 Grandsons and 1 Grandpa, Shengxing Tea House, and Guns N' Roses all rushed in. Several uniquely designed hovercars arrived over Hyman. Yin Xiao leaned out from the top of one, pulling up a sniper rifle with a sigh. Looks like another overtime shift. Again, my luck's really bad. Huh? Yin Xiao swallowed the latter half of the sentence, looked down at his feet, a playful smile creeping up. Actually, my luck's pretty good. After a minute of silence, the high-voltage electric grid restarted. With their fearless resistance, the people of Hyman managed to hold off the zombies outside the city. Amidst the chaotic battlefield, Song K yelled at Braided Head, "Hey, don't wander off. Stick close to me." "Aw." Braided Head replied and obediently followed behind V587. Song K quickly freed a scarf from her hand and securely covered the girl's face with it. As she was about to sprint forward, a nimble figure descended from above, landing right in front of her. The man was clad in combat gear, camo pants, high military boots, and wore fingerless sniper gloves. It was Yin Xiao. "We meet again, Song K," Yin Xiao greeted with a smile. "How about we discuss something?" "No time," Song K replied bluntly. She didn't have time for small talk with him. Yin Xiao shrugged off her indifference and gestured towards Braided Head hiding behind Song K. "You hand this guy over to me, and I'll help you kill the Zombie King, deal?" A threatening growl emanated from Braided Head's throat. Song K frowned, about to respond, when a piercing alarm rang out across the entire city. A few minutes ago, while everyone's attention was on the underwater zombies, a group of about 30 individuals dressed in uniforms approached the gatehouse. Upon closer inspection, their movements appeared stiff and uncoordinated. "Who goes there?" A sentinel raised his gun, sternly asking, but the identical uniforms caused hesitation, preventing them from shooting immediately. The opposition swiftly lunged forward. The sentinels groaned as their necks snapped audibly. Scattered bodies lay on the ground as these people silently crossed over, picking up firearms from the fallen. Knock, knock. The leader politely knocked on the door. The person in charge of the control room opened the video intercom, seeing a sentinel outside with a low-brimmed hat and an eerie tattoo on their chin. "What's your ID number?" the person asked cautiously. "I haven't seen you before." The individual slowly lifted their head, their cloudy gray eyes staring straight at them. The person in charge paled, and hastily took a step back, trying to press the alarm button. Unfortunately, it was too late. The next moment, the gates were violently smashed open, dozens of zombies barged in, and blood-curdling screams echoed. Haman's first iron gate was opened from the inside.